And hello, welcome, aware and awake family, friends, and followers, and happy New Year's Eve. Today is the final day of 2025. Can you believe it? We are here, we've done another year, we've made it through another wild, unpredictable, enlightening, and reality challenging year. And you and I both know this wasn't your average 365 days. If you've been with All Aware podcast throughout all of 2025, you've journeyed with us through the strange and the significant, from cutting edge geopolitics or political events to spiritual topics. We've talked about government cover-ups, UFOs, mysterious, and the paranormal, and all that stuff. And tonight, we're going to be doing a special episode. We're going to be doing a year in reflection. We're going to revisit the most impactful topics we experienced this year, the conversations that expanded our minds, and the questions that made us all aware. So sit back, open your mind, grab your glass of champagne, and let's walk through 2025 one key episode at a time. We're going to be right back here on All Aware, special New Year's Eve broadcast. Stay tuned.
Dim lights flicker in the studio glow. Voices echo where the mystics flow. Spirits whisper in digital air. Tune in now if you dare. Aliens talk through untold night. Conspiracies hidden from blinking sight. Secrets murmur like an old affair. Dive in deep if you care. Is it a time you became all aware? Unlock the truth if you really dare. With each beat, let your mind declare the mysteries we share.
And welcome back to All Aware special New Year's Eve 2025 episode, where we're going to be going over the episodes of this year, what we talked about, what we explored, and where we went on the podcast, and who we talked to. And in the first episode of 2025, we discussed various unusual events and incidents, such as the truck attack in New Orleans, a cyber truck explosion that happened near the Trump Tower, and implications of the 2024 U.S. presidential election, what happened there. We touched on numerous reports of strange mist popping up across the country and possible concerns that may be why people appear to be getting ill. Now, with this subject, coincidentally, here in the end of 2025, this seems to be the case again, where people are reporting strange fog. We're catching strange activity on night vision cameras, on home surveillance systems and things of this fog with what seems to be weird mist or weird organisms within the mist. I'll pop one of my videos up here that I caught earlier this year showing similar things. Now, some people say this is snow. Some people say that it's just, pollen or some kind of debris that's natural and normal. And some of this could be the only thing with this that gets me to kind of lean a different way is the motion, the way that it's interacting and moving. It isn't really moving in a normal, natural way, almost like it has a mind of its own kind of thing. And when this particular video was captured, it was just a normal foggy night. I live near, literally on a river, so the river oftentimes gets foggy, and it kind of starts there and then kind of, rises a little bit and eventually covers the landscape during the evening and things like that. And we usually don't have this type of view where there's things floating around like that. It's just misty, and when it rains, you'll see rain drops and things that looks different. So there is something a little strange. And in California in December 2025, there were reports of this radioactive fog that was making people ill. People were getting sore throats and things like that. So we've kind of circled back around from the beginning of the year when we had these reports, and we discussed them in the first episode. That was called "Is There Something in the Mist? New Year's Terror, Weird Fog, and Drones," and that was the first episode where we went into that. So if you haven't checked out that episode, go back because some of it's actually relevant again with this new mist that we've had, and maybe it's just a normal thing now, or maybe people. It could be also that people are super vigilant. They're super honed in on stuff now since there's so much weirdness going on. A lot of times, we tend to start paying more attention when we become super hyper vigilant. And start noticing things that maybe we didn't notice before because we didn't have to. So here's a clip from that episode, the very first episode of the year we did in January called "Is There Something in the Mist?" Very, very strange. And on top of that, other strange things that are happening. Look at this.
Like, this is fucked up. It smells. Can't see shit.
It's all over.
This is Daytona Beach Shores, Florida at 1:45 p.m. today, and you can see the fog rolling in from two directions, but not in the middle part here.
It's all over.
I'll show you. And then the next video that's about to come up right after this one is the balcony view, and you can't even see the ocean at all. And you can see this big ring.
This is down in Florida. We were on the East Coast in the first one.
In a matter of about 15 minutes. Keep in mind there's no rain forecasted. It's not very cold outside. This is just very unusual to see and a very random time for fog to just appear. This
Middle of the day.
Beach Shores, Florida.
Oh, there's more. What's this guy? Look, it's a truck driver.
Weird feeling like something big is about to happen, right? Like this weird feeling of impending doom. I have been having this crazy feeling like in my belly. I don't know what it is, okay? To be brutally honest, I feel like something is already happening. And here's why. For the last few days, there have been crazy reports of dense, thick fog in many states all over America, in addition to the UK. Now, this is not your regular fog.
UK?
A lot of people have been
everywhere.
That
United States?
Some weird type of mist coming out of the sky with this fog, okay? In addition to that, there have been 4 plane crashes, y'all, within the last 5 days, okay? 3 of those plane crashes occurred within the last 24 hours. You had one on Christmas Day in Kazakhstan, and then within the last 24 hours, you had one in South Korea, Nova Scotia, as well as Norway. In addition to that, y'all, so many people have been reporting this weird sickness.
We didn't even talk about the planes. 3 or 4 planes going down. There was a movie. Was it like The End or This Is the End? Obama pretty much had something to do with it. I don't know. That it came out on Netflix. Or the boats were going all crazy. We had that last year. So, but here within the last week, we're having this stuff. Now, look, she's about to talk about what people were experiencing in this fog.
So they're having muscle soreness, sore throat, body aches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, the whole 9. And they said that this sickness had just been coming out of nowhere. I don't know about you, but I feel like something big is happening or about to happen, and these people just are not telling us. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that something big has been happening, has already happened years ago. And it has to do with the operations of our country, the operations of our world, and some people who didn't like how things operated. Or actually, maybe I'm seeing that wrong. They did like the way things operated, but the operations that were for the few and not for the many, and that were like the special club that only so and so, you can be a part of if you're in this bloodline, and if you have this amount of money and you do these certain rituals and things, and you keep certain things quiet that the public wouldn't appreciate, or may not even like at all and might throw up if they knew was happening. And, maybe some information about some off-worlders that are involved. That would just blow the mind of so many people if they knew that there were uh, other beings maybe on planet Earth or around or on other planets that have some kind of say in operations down here. That'd be kind of weird and creepy, right? Let's see what else.
Possible to keep track of.
It's a project first dreamed up by the military to get information from the battlefield.
They call it smart dust, and the new technology may soon make it possible to keep track of anything, anywhere, including you.
We also talked to Timothy Kreigel, who is he's a Pennsylvania state constable, let's say it that way, which is a volunteer elected position in the Pennsylvania law enforcement community. And he came on the program earlier this year and talked to us about what we call the forgotten firsts, the legacy, the lost legacy of the PA Constable Service. He talked about corruption within the Pennsylvania government system when it comes to voting and when it comes to the law enforcement judicial judicial system in Pennsylvania. He talked about his position as a constable there, his duties and things within his community, which they call boroughs, or boroughs, I should say. And he also went into some specific names of individuals in the Pennsylvania government body that seem to be using a lot of leeway with how they interpret certain laws and things like that. We talked a little bit about the Butler, PA incident where President Donald Trump had the attempted assassination attempt on him, and Mr. Kreigel wasn't present at the event, but mentioned he would have been unsure of his response if he happened to be there at the event, because he would have wanted to, do something, or if he would have saw something, he said it would have been a different type of story for him. So here's a clip from that episode, Forgotten First, Lost Legacy of PA Constables, with PSC Timothy Kreigel.
Sure. Pennsylvania state constables are intertwined with Pennsylvania history itself, and as well as the history of the nation, to be honest. There's so much that happens in Philadelphia that influenced not only Pennsylvania, but the entire country. And law enforcement is one of those things. William Penn received the charter in 1681 from King George of England, and he came over and he landed in Chester, Pennsylvania. And Chester, Pennsylvania was the first capital for about 1 year, from 1681 to 1682, before Philadelphia was even founded. And then in 1682, at some point, Philadelphia was founded and became the capital. But whenever William Penn came over to Pennsylvania, he brought the English system. And the English system is magistrates, constables, and sheriffs. And so sheriffs are over a county. Constables are elected locally. I think originally they may have been appointed, but in Pennsylvania now, Pennsylvania state constables are elected for 6 years in their local jurisdiction, but they have statewide coverage. So I can go anywhere in the state with the same authority.
Nice. So what are your specific job duties and tasks in the constable service there?
Well, I run my office independently, so it's up to each constable how they run that particular office. It's also based on the needs of the community and the needs of potentially neighboring communities. For example, I was in Philadelphia, where there's a lot of need out there, and so the call goes out to see what Pennsylvania state constables might be interested in serving in that area. A lot of times we set up contracts. Pennsylvania state constables are at the core unpaid. It's the core functions of a constable are volunteer. There's no direct funding from tax revenue. So in order to fund the office and get equipment, things like that, we enter into contractual agreements with either municipalities or private entities. And that's actually what I was doing. And, that's how we buy the cars, the training, the gear, different things like that. In Pennsylvania,
Sure.
It's nobody's job to pick up an arrest warrant. It could be anybody's job or nobody's job. It depends on what agency happens to pick that up or who's the most interested. A lot of warrants get picked up on traffic stops, but aside from the traffic stops and the random encounters, unless somebody's actually looking for that person, it's no one agency's job. It could be anybody. It could be a constable that makes that arrest, a sheriff, a local police officer, or a state trooper. And as far as authority goes, it's almost easier to reverse engineer, because other than the sheriffs, everybody in Pennsylvania is a constable. You have the elected constables, which are, I call the ELEs, the elected law enforcement constables. And then every other agency bases their authority in Pennsylvania off of the constables. So they're called ex officio constables, or XOCs. So a municipal city police officer is actually an ex officio constable, as is a county detective and a state trooper.
And that was another good episode we did this year. It was a lot of fun talking with Constable Craigle. He was very knowledgeable about the history of Pennsylvania and his position as a constable, and it's good to see, people like that who are very dedicated to their position, who want to serve and protect, and who go above and beyond, and not in the maybe general sense that everybody looks at that statement, but in the fact that he does more within the state than he's required to try to awaken and make people aware of how things are going in the state, how the election system works, how the government system works, about common law, which has been kind of secretly, quietly kind of dusted under the rug in the United States of America. We don't talk about common law very often, which is really the law of the land, which is actually the factual law structure that has the most power on the land here in the United States of America. A lot of the things that we see as law that our cities, our counties, and things bring upon us are kind of like statutory law, or their admiralty, or their torts or policies or regulations, things that are not voted on by the people, that are put in place by, kind of as he was saying, he kind of explained how the country and how states were kind of corporatized. They were made corporations, and then you would have a head of the corporation, which we typically call our governor. And the governors then make, or the legislative body that the governor elects, would make these policies, these statutes, these torts, regulations, rules. There's so many different words. But common law is what everything was derived from when the colonies were founded. And it was the whole system that we were attempting to start up to give more freedom and more fairness to the living man and woman that was, kind of associating with the land and building the first towns and cities and things like that. You had personal responsibility, you had personal, you could take care of your home, you could protect your home, your family, your flock, things like that. And, unless you did harm onto another person, it wasn't really a crime. If you hurt any other living thing or human being physically or mentally in some aspects, or abuse of any sort that way, that's against the law. But these other things that we've grown to know in society to today, up until today, is more, it's not based on common law. But anyways, that was a good discussion. Hopefully we'll get him back on again. Let me know in the comments there if we can, if you want to hear more from him, or maybe some more topics or conversations that we can get into about his position, about constable service. Constable services are active all over the United States. PA happens to be the first state, I believe, very first state, or one of the very first states that had that type of structure. And it's all over the country. Like I said, there's different roles. Texas has constable services, which take up a specific role within the state of Texas, typically doing administrative stuff, not much really enforcement, but the other side of things where they're doing more administrative, or after I guess after effect. I don't trying to say how to say it, but follow up type things, investigations, maybe even traffic, investigations, criminal investigations, um, things that sometimes the sheriff usually does, which would be property disputes and court appearances for different things that way and processes that way. In Oklahoma, trying to think where else, several places, especially specifically in the West and in the Northwest, Louisiana, different places they have constable services still. You just don't know it. You don't see them because you typically see the corporate police departments, the city police departments, the counties. Obviously, the sheriff is a department that a lot of people have familiar familiarity with, and a lot of times the constables are associated with the sheriff. But that was a great episode. And then another episode that we did this year, we met up with my good friend Echo Hotel. We've talked about different geopolitical subjects, what's going on with the current presidency, what's going on with the operation that's basically coming to appear to be more of a civil war between factions of the government in the United States and in the world. We talked about the fakeness of a lot of the stuff you're seeing on the media and in your face, how even some of the people that you've seen and think is the person they say it is probably fake. It could be a stand-in or a clone or even President Trump tweeted once this year that a lot of the things that you see are clones. He specifically referred to Biden as being a robotic, electronic, soulless thing in a clone. And while that might seem kind of shocking in this day and age, that stuff is available. We talked in an episode about the CIA and their masks and what they've had available for decades now to make it look like somebody is completely a different person by just putting on a mask that forms to the face and you look completely different. So there's all kinds of things that way. He's referenced, and we've talked about it in the podcast this year, about Central Casting. And Central Casting is a company that is known for many years in Hollywood and in the movie producing business to provide stand-ins or lookalikes or kind of Manchurian candidates, basically, that act and speak and walk and everything talk like the people they are supposed to be. It's basically like having a body double for you. You call them up and they find somebody that looks like you and they go out and do your bidding. So you can sit on the golf course or in your house playing video games or whatever you do if you have that type of cash that exists. So that's what that means when he said that. So let's look at a couple clips now from Echo Hotel and I getting together and talking what we talk. What's going on with you out there on that side of the world?
Yeah, speaking of weather, I just got in yesterday, and the winds were blowing. So I'm on the New Mexico-Texas border, and the winds were blowing south to north, and then an hour later they were blowing north to south, and this huge black cloud came over and just started dumping rain. So none of the weather that you're talking about is normal right now. And I was talking to another friend of mine who got stuck at the Arizona border. Same thing. The winds kicked up and it was a sandstorm. They shut the freeway down. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's the weather out here is nothing that I've ever seen. Not sure what you're going through on the East Coast, but yeah, it's the weather out here is bizarre. Lots of winds, lots of rain, lots of just bizarre weather.
I guess one of the things is people are kind of waking up to something's not normal.
There it is. Can you see that?
Yep.
Ezra Cohen. I'm going to spell it out one time only for those who are lost and not registering. And this says 2024, but I want to say this came out probably 2020, 2021.
Like a repost maybe in 24.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll read through it real quick. So from Ezra Cohen Watnick, I'm going to spell it out one time only for those who are lost and not registering the hundreds of clues we've been dropping you. Here we go, one time. Pay close attention. You are watching a movie. A lot of what you are seeing is complete bullshit and fake. It's so outrageous on purpose to get your attention at this point. It will continue until it has accomplished that goal fully. Obviously, it hasn't accomplished that goal because we're still going through this crap. And there's
Right.
still people at Applebee's that believe what's going on.
Yeah.
We all know there's no Biden presidency, or at least you and I know there's no Biden presidency. We've been
Right.
through that time and time again. When people think he was inaugurated, he wasn't inaugurated. It was a funeral service. So the real Biden was executed for his crimes long ago with Clinton. Um, we know that she's been gone. Her Twitter was taken over a long time ago.
I saw a video yesterday of Cat Williams calling out Jamie Foxx, and he had two pictures of Jamie Foxx up there, and he said, Jamie Foxx, yeah, I hate to even go down this crazy ass road, but he said Jamie Foxx is cloned because one, Jamie Foxx was looked like Jamie Foxx, and the other Jamie Foxx had freckles and was light skinned.
Yep.
And it's like,
I saw that.
What's real? What the fuck is real?
Yeah, that's where we're at, man. Like, what is actually real, and what's not, and it's frustrating, for those that don't want to get into any level of depth with any of this stuff. I mean, I guess it's easy to just leave it alone, but when you've been following it like us for so long, and then some of the stuff that's going on, and then you see stuff like that, it's like, what's going on? And is it for our benefit, or is it, just to cover up something they don't want the public to know? Is the guy on the run?
Maybe that's enjoy the show.
And you're either gonna be a patriot or you're not. But I don't see the Democratic Party surviving this. I don't even see the Republican Party surviving this. The rhinos. I think we're long past parties now, and it's just going to come down to America.
Yeah.
And you're either gonna be a patriot or you're not. And we're seeing the first parts of that taking place now, where people are having to make a decision. They're having to make a decision on what side of the tracks they want to be on, and either self-deport and come back in the right way, or they're going to be taken out the hard way.
And the next 3 episodes that I'm going to mention on this special New Year's Eve 2025 recap episode, for all the episodes and what we talked about this year, the next 3 are probably going to be my favorite episodes of the season. And the first one of those is with SG Anon, also known as the Q News Patriot. Echo Hotel and I met up with him mid-year 2025 to discuss an update on the digital war that we consider it, and the geopolitical stuff going on. He is a great analyzer, I should say, on those things, and the way he follows and puts together the information was great. And so we met up with him in our digital warrior update, and here is a couple clips from that episode.
You can install desalination plants to completely eliminate the irrigation and water shortages along the Californian countryside, right? And so these are important contextual details when we look at what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground is evidence of a broader globalist agenda, but it is suggestive more deeply than even that agenda is being carried out by technology that governments are in possession of that the people do not even know exist.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And just to mention, we were talking about the smart cities. The top 12 include Fresno, California, Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, LaGrange, Georgia, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Miami-Dade County, Florida, and then there's also some other major cities in Texas, Illinois, and more California cities such as San Francisco and San Jose as well. So there's a lot of evidence there that could be part of what was going on.
At the same time, I think that with the establishment of the information war and just the absolute, unbelievable demolition salvo that we, the people, have taken to the mainstream legacy media complex, I don't think that those agendas have any more steam. A great deal of the steam behind them relied primarily on the public's ignorance to the actual causation, right? You can create tectonic events with some of the technology that the secret intelligence community has. You can certainly start, isolated and targeted thermal ignitions. We've seen that at least half a dozen times since 2018, just in the ones that the alternate media has talked about pretty publicly and public facing. But at the same time, I think it galvanizes the importance of why these conversations have to occur. If broadcasts like this were not possible or were not occurring due to the public's ignorance or the public simply being too busy with handling the everyday orders and business of life, 70% of LA County could be destroyed in one way or another, and we would all blame the weather patterns, or we would all blame nature, or we would all blame, the wrath of God, or some sort of, entity or blame it, scapegoat maybe is the best way to say it, that would take our momentum out of it, because you cannot change certain things about that.
And we didn't have that many guests. I wanted to bring on a lot more guests this year, but our episodes were kind of far and few in between. We had some server issues. We had some issues with equipment. It was just a crazy year with personal things for me, and trying to line up schedules and things. There were at least 3 guests that I knew, I can think of right now, that I was going to bring on that are known to the internet podcasting communities and to shows like All Aware and Night Watch and the other typical ones in the kind of conspiracy theory or political or geopolitical realm. That would have been great, and unfortunately they didn't make it, but we're going to try to get those on next year. We're going to try to bring on some more guests and more frequent. Again, try to get back to bringing on at least 1 to 2 guests per month to talk about different subjects. So it was great to have SG on. He makes himself available with his busy schedule. And he does, I don't know, hundreds of podcasts. So he's a very well-spoken one, and we hope to get him back on next year when some of this stuff clears up and starts to come to light of what is really going on in the crazy world, kind of like an information world war that we're having right now. And hopefully we can get him back on in 2026. Now, the next episode, it was with Echo Hotel and myself, and we brought on Elisa Sioni. Elisa Sioni is a UFO or alien contactee. She is a grandmother. She is, a very awakened and aware soul on the planet today. And she was on not once, but she came on, I believe, twice this last year in an episode called Aliens, Antarctica, and the Awakening. And in that, we discussed her experiences with actually seeing a UFO in her backyard, as well as a contactee kind of situation that happened as she goes through her experiences with being lifted into potentially a UFO craft and taken off planet, where she was able to kind of reawaken some conscious things in her mind and be able to see some physical things that kind of awakened her to a different type of reality and kind of humbled her into the life we live here on planet Earth. She also goes into kind of some future outlook type scenarios of what it could look like in the United States, in the world, with medical advances, with biological advances, and how the world may look and may come out to be. And it was nice. It was good. So we're hoping that it comes out that way. But here's a couple clips of that episode, Aliens, Antarctica, and the Awakening, with Elisa Sioni, Echo Hotel, and myself earlier this year.
Discussing pretty much how this all came about. with the Anunnaki getting involved with Earth and stuff like this here. And it is because, they needed gold to put into their atmosphere. Their atmosphere is very cloudy. You cannot see out to the stars and stuff like we can all over here because they have a very thick atmosphere. And it's because it's a volcanic planet. Now, I don't know about all of you, but that sounds like Vulcan. So, and a lot of descriptions of it and the way it looks, it sounds like they're describing Vulcan, from Star Trek. But it's not like it's overwhelming, but there's enough of them. They're constantly brewing, and the reason why they're brewing is because of a tidal effect that causes the planet to stretch, go in and outwards like this here, because it comes between this star and their star, and to where they're placed out on their star, it causes a lot of pull on that. So, and it causes it to, just like a planet, growing and having lava everywhere. Gaia does it too, and that's also because she pulls and tugs. Okay, and it causes these here types of eruptions all over. Well, they have a lot more of it, and it causes their atmosphere to be very thick. So for them to have the safe environment that they need to have that cloud because that's what they, you know, um, progressed in, upwards, evolved in that kind of atmosphere. So whenever there's gapes and holes in it, like you've heard them call here about having a hole in the atmosphere, well, they have a hole in theirs and they needed to cover it. And the only thing they can do, or what they said they can do, was use gold to fill the gaps. Okay, and that would reflect it to where it would come in without it being harmful. And their scientists assured that it would work. So.
Hey, there's pictures of people with giants that keep popping up on the internet these days, and you never know if it's real or fake or what it is. But I've always wondered about those.
It's real and it definitely excites the mind to think about something like that. I mean, I have a nephew that's 7'2". Okay, to me
Mhm.
that's pretty tall, you know.
Wow.
And to think that there's like 15 and 20 footers and some of them are 40 foot, that blows the mind.
Well, there's some
Like,
huge
Hmm.
doors. I think it's over in Europe where these doors are just massive.
mhm.
And why would they build these huge doors?
Yeah, because somebody was tall getting through there.
Yeah.
I mean, that just common sense. But when you think about these giants and then the size of us, how it's really scaling us down. And then you think about things that are smaller than us and how we must look like a giant to them. The things
Right.
that actually were here, the gnomes and the dwarves, the fairies and all this kind of good stuff, we must have seemed like we were just giants to these characters as well. So it all just keeps going down smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think that's pretty cool too. Um, but
And to close out this year in episodes, we have a couple more we're going to mention. And the next one is called PsyOps and LARPs. What is real? It's where I brought on Echo Hotel from Night Watch, and we discussed weather anomalies, current events again, and we also discussed what a PSYOP is. I went into some information, some indicators that you're living in a psyop or that you're being psychologically manipulated through the media or it could be through another person. Some of the red flags and things to watch for in a psyop, which is really, really prevalent now. We also talked a little bit about LARPs. LARPs is a live action role play scenario. A lot of times, gamers, people who play Dungeons and Dragons and different games like that, which require you to kind of take on the role of a creature or a different person or something, and you kind of live action play out the game in reality, in character and things like that. They're frequent. They know what that term LARP means, but for the rest of society who may not be into that, that is what a LARP is. A LARP is a live action role playing scenario, and we kind of talked in that episode a little bit about how what you're seeing around you could be a LARP. It could just be playing out things as if they are real or as if it's normal when maybe it's not so normal. Maybe it's not real. I don't know. That's some things we talked about on that. So here is a couple clips from PsyOps and LARPs. What's real? So the first thing that Mr. Hughes talks about is something called the fate model. So the FATE model is an acronym for a psychological operation, um, which hijacks your mind, and it stands for focus, um, authority, tribe, and emotion. So if you're dealing with a psychological operation where it's something that's meant to manipulate you into believing a certain exact way of thinking or an exact viewpoint or on something, then they're going to use the fate model. And you want to kind of check if there's any information being suppressed. That's kind of the biggest thing, um, is to kind of find if something is being suppressed. That is kind of how I woke up. Is I figured out that wait a second, there's evidence, there's things that are being said back years ago, and for some reason I found it yesterday, but I can't find it today. Why is that? Why would you hide information? And that's what woke up a lot of people and has awakened a lot of people is when stuff is suppressed. That should be your number one red flag that it's either a psychological operation or something's going on because you're not given the correct information or dissenting information is suppressed. So what's the purpose, right? So you got to think about that. You got to remember there's a term called cognitive dissonance. And that's when information that feels emotionally unsettling might be aiming to destabilize your thinking. So they're going to use cognitive dissonance. They're going to use information that feels emotionally unsettling to destabilize your thinking. So if you believe something for a very, very long time, and we've always been told that's how it is, all of a sudden it's not, and there's some emotional trigger behind it, trying to get you upset. And all right, guys, we are up to the last episode that we were able to get done this year. There should have been another one with Victor Zancudo, who's going to talk about Venezuela, the issues with the country, the relationship, the connection between the United States and Venezuela, about the the Maduro clan that's running things down there, and everything like that. And we recorded that episode, and actually we found out that we didn't record it. There was a glitch. There was something that went wrong with the recording equipment, and it didn't actually get the majority of the episode. So we went to schedule, and just the timelines with the holidays didn't add up, and it's gotten down now to where this is it. This is the last day of 2025. So that episode is going to come next year, January. We're going to talk to Victor Sancudo about the Venezuela connection is what it's going to be titled. And we're going to go into maybe some viewpoints and some different kind of, I guess viewpoints is the best way to say it, and just different perspectives is what I'm looking for. There it is. Perspectives of what it's like to be a Venezuelan, and what they're going through, and do they want America there? We'll talk about that next year. And to get on to the last episode, it was called Man Problems, and it was with Jack Kamer, who was a social worker, a corrections officer, a seasoned individual who had wealth of knowledge about the relationships between men and women, things that he observed and saw in the man community with his with the people that he dealt with in the prison system and his social work position in his life as a man and an elderly or older wise gentleman. And let's take a look at a couple clips from that now.
I do think that is a crucial question, because you're right. A lot of men are unhappy about what's going on. The question is, how do we turn that unhappy emotion, that dissatisfaction with the status quo, into positive change? It makes perfect sense to me why men are angry. But the important thing to know about anger in men, I think, is that anger is almost always a secondary emotion. And what I mean by that is that it's not manly for men to be sad. It's not manly for men to be depressed. It's not manly for men to be uncertain. It's not manly for men to not have a solution. But what is manly for men? The emotion that's manly for men is anger. And so it's the one we sort of always, we're conditioned to go to that one, because if we go to sad, we can easily be mocked. So the anger is understandable. but it's better for men to think about what we feel before we feel angry. And I think what we feel is sad, disappointed, confused, conflicted. We feel betrayed. You know, whatever the emotions are, all of those emotions are in a way very approachable, and they almost invite people to say, "Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. You know, I don't want you to feel disappointed in me. Let me see what I can do better."
I was going to ask you also about the dating apps because there's been studies done on these, and like 90% of men on dating apps are overlooked, and 80% of the women are looking for basically that 10%, while 90% of men are looking for the 20% that are not looking for the 90 or the 10% of men. So the dynamics there have shifted, and maybe it has something to do with kind of stuff what you're saying too, the algorithms. And we don't have somewhere where it says, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want to be a stay-at-home dad and I can work part-time. I'm looking, it's still the way it's always been, and that's how we date too. But the dating dynamics are also different because when you try to date, the man, it's all on the man. We're all expected to make the money, we're expected to pay for the first date, and we're getting less dates. So we're going out there spending our hard-earned money on these dates, and then the woman has more choices according to the data. So they're going off with somebody else, and now we're having to pay for another date. Maybe that woman finds somebody else because we don't make $120,000 a year or whatever. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Instead of a trade, instead of a negotiation, what we got was a shakedown. It was a shakedown based on shame. You men are male chauvinist pigs, and we don't like you, and you are our enemy. So the way that came about was that when men back then, and I was an adolescent, I was 12, 13, at the beginning of all of this, I was aware that there were a lot of men who said, hey, this sounds pretty good to me, this no sexism thing. It'll be good for men too, because we're not exactly loving our jobs all the time. And there's a lot of pressure on us to make a lot of money, and it's not easy. And we're dying earlier, we're alcoholic more often, we're having more mental health problems, we're getting addicted. Yeah, we would like some changes too. So it was at that point that I thought, the male point of view is not very well understood. Part of the problem is that it's not very well articulated. So I contacted a local radio station at Towson University, north of Baltimore, a college-run public radio station, and said, I want to do this show. They made me do a pilot. What are you talking about? I did the pilot, went over pretty well, and I did it from 1983 to 1989. But my show on the radio started out mostly about the problems that men and women have, and let's be nicer to each other. But after doing this show for a couple of months, once a week, it became really clear pretty fast that this wasn't just about men and women having nice relationships. This was about some serious social problems. Some serious social problems arise from the biases and stereotypes and limitations and pressures that we place on men. Now, if you're a man who's got a good education and a good job, and you got a good family that can back you up with cash when you need it, it's pretty good being a man back in the 60s, because men were judged, 60s, 70s, 80s. Men were judged primarily by how much money they had. But a fellow named Richard Rowe worked for the Baltimore Urban League, a black man, sent me a flyer, didn't send it to me specifically, just sent it to the station, about a conference he was staging at an HBCU in Baltimore, Morgan University. And he was doing a conference. He was going to stage a conference called Black Men and Endangered Species. And that's, right up my alley, especially because it's about men. It's right up my alley. We talked, we met. We did a radio show. We really hit it off. And it just really nailed down the fact that there are a lot of serious social issues. And they show up very often, primarily in the black community. Baltimore is a distressed town. It's a majority black city. We got a lot of problems here. Anybody who's watched The Wire, has a feeling for what Baltimore can be like. It's called Bulletmore Murderland by 1994. It got canceled because some feminist women at the publishers decided they didn't like what it was saying. It was reactionary because I interviewed women who weren't entirely in favor with the way feminism was going.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah. Let's hit on that real quick before we close out here. It is cancel culture. I know you have said some stuff about cancel culture, and it's that. I mean, what is going on with that? I mean, not being able to get multiple sides out doesn't make it very easy to come to a conclusion in your own mind how you want to feel about something.
Yes, well, the media definitely are a problem for the men's movement because, for one thing, there are a lot of young writers and journalists and people who do websites who went to women's studies programs at college. And they're willing to take jobs that don't pay a lot of money so that they can, press the cause of women's equality, and we're going to smash the patriarchy. There are a lot of professional feminists out there. Many of them are in the media, and they sort of dominate the media. And a lot of reporters, a lot of male reporters are under pressure not to be called misogynists by telling sometimes unfortunate truths about what really goes on between men and women.
And that's going to be it. That's it, guys. All Aware Podcast 2025. That's what we hit on this year. I hope you liked it. I hope you want more. I hope you subscribe. If you haven't already, tell your friends, tell your family. Spread this stuff anywhere you want to. Get the word out. We're going to hopefully have a very, very good 2026. And we wish you the best tonight. Make sure you're safe. Drink responsibly. Get an Uber or have a designated driver if you're going out. Make sure you get champagne at midnight. And we're going to see you on the other side in 2026. This has been another episode of All Aware. I am Nathan Roshawn, and you are All Aware. Happy New Year. Woo. See you guys.